Hola! Today we will learn about adjectives. First, what is an adjective? Adjectives modify nouns providing more detail about them, such as the color or a description. You already learned a few adjectives in Spanish when you learned the colors, since colors are used to describe things. For example, the red book, el libro rojo. You can also use the linking verb is to describe things, such as the university is big. La universidad es grande. Note, adjectives only modify nouns or pronouns. To modify verbs, we use adverbs, but we'll get to that in later chapters. As we'll see, adjectives in Spanish behave slightly different from those in English. Let's learn some adjectives in Spanish that we can use as examples later on. Interesante, inteligente, importante, grande, amable, feliz, alegre, fácil, difícil, paciente, impaciente, idealista, realista, optimista, pesimista, sociable, egoísta. You learned in previous lessons that nouns and articles in Spanish must agree in gender, masculine or feminine, and number, singular or plural. Well, the same concept applies to adjectives. Let's look at some examples. If the noun is masculine and singular, the adjective that describes the noun will also be masculine and singular. El chico generoso. If the noun is feminine and singular, the adjective that describes the noun will also be feminine and singular. La chica generosa. If the noun is masculine and plural, the adjective that describes the noun will also be masculine and plural. Los chicos generosos. If the noun is feminine and plural, the adjective that describes the noun will also be feminine and plural. Las chicas generosas. Note, if an adjective ends in O for the masculine form, in general, it is going to have 4 different forms. For example, generoso, generosa, generosos, generosas. Every other adjective that ends in a vowel except O, such as ista or a consonant, only has 2 forms, meaning it only differentiates between singular and plural, and you don't have to worry about feminine and masculine. The plurals of adjectives are formed in the same way that you learned in previous lessons for nouns. Add an S if the word ends in a vowel, and an ES if it ends in a consonant. If I want to say the boy is intelligent, I say el chico es inteligente. But what if I want to say the girl is intelligent? La chica es inteligente. See, inteligente doesn't change because it does not end in an O, and therefore I don't have to differentiate between feminine and masculine. I only have to worry about the plural. If I want to say the girls are intelligent, I say las chicas son inteligentes. Let's look at other examples. Marcos es idealista y generoso. Teresa no es idealista, pero es generosa. As you can see, in these 2 examples, idealista doesn't differentiate between feminine and masculine, but generoso and generosa does, because the masculine form ends in a no. Now, la clase es fácil. pero los exámenes son difíciles. Again, fácil and difícil only differentiate between plural and singular and not masculine and feminine. Now that you understand how to make adjectives agree with the nouns, where do adjectives go? In English, the adjectives usually precede the noun. In Spanish, they are usually placed after the noun they are describing or after the verb ser. For example, el marcador verde está en la mochila. As you can see, marcador is the noun, verde is the adjective. In English, the order will be the opposite. The green marker is in the backpack. Let's look at another example. Los estudiantes son inteligentes. In this case, when you're using the verb ser, it follows the same pattern that you have in English. The students are intelligent. As you know, there are always exceptions to the rules. Indefinite adjectives that indicate quantity, such as mucho, alguno, ninguna, cada, and numbers precede the noun. In this case, they are placed in the same way that they would in English. For example, hay 4 marcadores negros y 2 marcadores rojos. En la universidad hay muchos estudiantes. As you can see, 4, 2 y mucho are placed before the noun, while negros and rojos was placed after the noun. Just for future reference, there are a few exceptions to the placement that you will learn later. Some adjectives mean something slightly different when used before a noun instead of after. I'll give you an example. Alto. Alto could mean top or high, but also tall, depending on where you place the adjective. For example, pagamos un alto precio. We pay a high price. Es un hombre alto. In the first example, because it precedes the noun, alto means high. But in the second example, because it's after the noun, it means tall. Well, you will learn the exceptions later. This is the end of today's lesson. Adiós!